How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be reading some more scary Reddit stories while I build my house in Minecraft, and these stories I found turned out to be really good. I enjoyed them a lot and I hope you do too. So let's just get right into it. My neighbor used to peek at me over her fence when I was little. Her fence is 10 feet tall. I didn't realize my new customer used to be my neighbor until I pulled into her driveway. The street name had sounded vaguely familiar when I first read it. A few landmarks on her drive over had sparked something in me. Nothing solid though, just a prickling sense of recognition I couldn't place. It only clicked when I saw my old childhood home sitting right beside my customer's property. I know it's strange that it took me that long, that I hadn't recognized anything when I put the address into Google Maps, but my uncle moved me out of this quiet neighborhood when I was 6. I barely remember anything about living on this street or in that house. My girlfriend Ellie said that wasn't quite normal, told me gently that it was probably my brain blocking things out on purpose. I sat gripping the steering wheel long after I parked, staring at my childhood home. I backed onto a large woodland area, tall trees looming far above the roof. The bungalow itself looked abandoned, shattered windows, empty bottles scattered around dead yellow grass. Clearly no one had lived here in a long time. A heavy pressure settled in my chest for a moment. I considered leaving, but I'd only started my lawn mowing business a few months ago, and I needed the money. This woman was only my third customer so far. She hadn't called like the others. She emailed instead. "I'm interested in your service every week Sunday work." I replied that Sundays were fine and asked for the address. She sent it, followed by another message. "Door left open on Sundays. Money on the table. Help yourself to drink and meal." It struck me as odd that she'd contact someone who lived an hour away instead of a local business, but she'd promised me a generous tip. Still waiting in the van, I tried to remember my old neighbor. Elderly maybe. The emails felt that way, but when I searched my memory for her face, I come up blank. Just another thing lost to my strange childhood amnesia. Her lawn was wildly overgrown, knee-high grass, thick and uneven. The house itself was perfectly normal, a neat 2-story place with a front porch, well kept enough that the state of the yard felt odd, almost like a choice. I hesitated, wondering if I should knock or just start the job. In the end, I got to work. Part of me didn't want to meet her yet. I was delaying it. I couldn't explain why. As I mowed, my gaze kept drifting to the fence, separating her property from my old home. It was enormous, easily 10 feet tall. I couldn't believe something like that had been approved in a quiet suburban street. But it wasn't just the size. Every time I looked at it, pressure built behind my eyes, the sensation of a memory forcing its way up while inside me resisted just as hard. The effort made my head throb. Then, for a split second, I remembered hair. Long, black strands spilling down the fence from the other side, tangled and thin, draped over the timber, clinging to the wood, hanging there like a ragged curtain. I froze on my cheap plastic tricycle. One of the back wheels was missing, so I had to balance my weight just right to keep it upright. It's strange, the useless little details that scramble back when everything else is lost. The hair shifted, and slowly, above the lip of the fence, a pale forehead rose. Those were the eyes, white and cloudy. I only saw them for a moment, but I knew immediately who they were peeking down at. Me. Only me. Then there had been a sound behind me, maybe a voice, maybe someone calling my name. The eyes vanished, forehead sank out of sight, the hair slid upward strand by strand, slithering back over the fence until there was nothing left at all. Cold washed through my body. I tightened my grip on my mower handle and focused on the lines of grass ahead of me. I didn't look at the fence again. Surely it had just been my imagination, something I'd invented out of boredom. No one could peek over a 10-foot tall fence unless they were standing on stilts or balancing on some ridiculous ladder. And even then, why would anyone climb that high just to look at a child playing in their backyard? It was too strange to take seriously, too absurd. And yet, an unease bloomed low in my chest and refused to settle, because that image, hair spilling over the fence, eyes watching, was suddenly one of the clearest memories I had from that house. From that time, clearer than anything else I could recall in over a decade. I shook my head. forced the image away, and got back to work. An hour later, the lawn looked respectable again. I packed my equipment back into my uncle's van. Then I remembered the money. I knocked on the front door and I waited a bit. She did say to let myself in, but it felt wrong to just waltz into a stranger's house. I waited another few moments before finally reaching for the handle and stepping inside. "Miss Ramona, are you home?" I called out, remembering her name from her email address. One of the first things I noticed was the ceiling. It was unusually high. It made the space feel wide and open, almost cavernous. It also made it incredibly cold inside. Goosebumps rose over my arms. Most of the ground floor was open plan, so I spotted the kitchen right away, where a wooden table sat by the counter. There was the money laid out neatly on top of it. Beside it, a glass jug filled with what looked like lemonade, ice cubes floating inside, a clean glass, and a sandwich on a plate. She said to help myself. Still, I hesitated. I felt silly to be cautious, but I hadn't even met her. I picked up the money and nearly choked when I counted it. $450. I only charged $60. She mentioned a tip, sure, but this was excessive. What if she was elderly? What if she'd miscounted? I took $100 and left the other $100 on the table just in case. Then that's when I heard something upstairs. A wheeze, wet and uneven, like air being dragged through damaged lungs. After that, 2 sharp creaks snapped through my house in quick succession, floorboards protesting under sudden weight. My body went rigid. Someone was definitely home. I stared at the staircase. "Hello?" My voice rang out too loud in the open space. "Miss Ramona?" No answer. I edged closer to the stairs despite myself, my heart beginning to pound. The noises replayed in my head. What had made them? Had she fallen? Was she hurt? If she was elderly, I told myself, I should check. That was the decent thing to do. But another part of me was screaming to leave. The feeling was sudden and absolute, like stepping into a place you were never meant to enter. Like bait. After a moment, I turned back to the table. I picked up the sandwich so I wouldn't seem rude, my hands clumsy and shaking. Then I got out. When I drove home, I sat in the van for a long time with the engine off. The sandwich rested on the passenger seat. Eventually, I opened the bread. Inside was butter and raw red meat. I swallowed, then noticed something else threaded through it. I pinched it between my fingers and pulled. A single hair slid free. Dark, absurdly long. I told my girlfriend what happened but left out the part about my strange memory. Ellie laughed. "You're scared of a little old granny?" "I don't know if she's a granny," I said. "I've never met this woman. She could be a man for all I know." "Are you sure? You said she was your old neighbor," she said, her eyes soft but insistent, the gentle look she always got when she was trying to probe something about my childhood. "Are you sure you don't remember anything?" That long, black hair entered my mind again. At that moment, I remembered something else. The single strand had caught in the fence, drifting in the breeze until I detached and floated down to my 6-year-old self. I remember plucking it from the air and then playing with it carefully so it wouldn't snap. I had wrapped it around my arm, amazed I could coil almost the entire length up to my little forearm, like linen around an Egyptian mummy. I shook my head at Ellie's question and told her about the inedible sandwich instead. Ellie laughed again, shaking her head. "The poor woman probably has dementia." A week later, I went back. I didn't want to, but Ellie had made me realize I was being ridiculous, and the money mattered. If we ever wanted to move out of my uncle's house, we needed it. My stomach churned the whole drive. Before I even started the mower, my eyes went to the fence again. I remember long, curling fingers reaching over the top, and once more, I remember seeing a half face peering down at me, just eyes and a forehead visible above the timber, watching. I reluctantly went inside to collect my payment. This time she left $300 on the table. Beside it, a note, the handwriting thin and spidery. "Take all the money. Why no drink?" My gaze drifted to the jug of lemonade. I filled a glass, intending to pour half of it down to the sink to make it look like I had had some. Instead, for some reason I couldn't explain, I took a small sip. It was cold, sweet, good. After that, the memories returned stronger than ever. I had a dream that night, a dream about food being thrown over an enormous fence. Sometimes it was roast chicken, still warm inside a plastic bag, juices sloshing against the sides. Other times it was a whole chicken, raw, feathers still clinging to the pale skin. Sometimes it was fresh fruit in a cracked plastic container. Other times it was rotting apples and a thick slab of heavy red meat. I remembered the hunger. I remembered setting up a blanket over the bushes beside the fence, a small hidden nest where I could crouch and store what I was given. I remembered eating like an animal, devouring whatever was edible before anyone could find me. I remember my scalp itching constantly, lice multiplying, biting, crawling, with no one bothering to stop them, a whole kingdom of parasites living freely in my hair. Then I remembered the hand. It slipped through the narrow gap between the fence and the bushes where I sat with my back pressed against the timber, rustling the spindly branches. The hand was enormous but gentle. One long finger brushed the tangled hair out of my face. The itching faded. I stared up and saw nothing but the endless length of a thin, gray arm disappearing over the fence. I remembered wrapping my small hands around that enormous finger and holding it tight, crying into it. Then I remembered an angry voice coming from somewhere. The finger wiggled gently until I released it, and then the hand vanished. The arm withdrew. When I looked back up, only a faint wisp of dark hair was visible above the fence line. Someone tore the blanket away from my hiding place. They yelled, screamed in disgust. I was sitting on a hoard of food. A lot of it was rotting. There were flies, there were maggots. Hands grabbed my arm and dragged me out of the bushes and away from my massive fence, so hard I thought the bones would snap. "Stop," I screamed. The third time I went back to mow Ramona's lawn, I did not hesitate. Something had begun to clarify itself inside me, like an image slowly coming into focus, and I knew I needed to speak with her. Ramona. Finally, I didn't know if the memories were wholly real, but pieces were fitting together now, clicking into place with a quiet inevitability. It felt closer to the truth than I had ever before, and instead of making my head ache, it planted something determined inside of me, something that refused to stay quiet any longer. I thought maybe my neighbor had been a sweet older granny who babysat me sometimes. Maybe she fed me, maybe she took care of me, maybe she read me stories. Maybe this was the only way my memories were able to return, disguised as something else, something not quite real, but threaded through with truth. As I started the lawnmower this time, I didn't look away from the fence. I remembered the humming, a low, steady hum, as I lay hidden in the bushes beside the fence. The yelling in the house always softened when I listened to her hums. I remember being lifted so high I could see over the roof of my house. I remember being placed on a sturdy branch in the forest and being given a dead fox. I remembered biting into the furry flesh, feeling warm blood dribble down my cheeks. I remember sitting in a cocoon of warmth, high above the ground, watching the stars blink into existence. I remember running into a hiding place between the fence and the bushes, shaking, starving, sick with fear. I remember someone chasing me. "Henry, you get back here right now, you little shit," she screamed. She caught my arm and wrenched me around. "Mommy, stop," I sobbed. "Don't hurt me again." I remembered my mother freezing, and I remember something brushing the back of my neck, light and familiar, like long strands of hair. My mother gasped, staring at something above us, terror carved into her face. I looked up, then the fingers came. They wrapped them around my mother's body and lifted her up, up, up. She was screaming as she went, so I called out, "It's okay, Mommy. She's just taking you to see the stars." There was a deafening crunch, and her screaming stopped. I saw something fly across the sky like a meteor, disappearing into the forest. Hands closed around me. They were so warm when they lifted me, gentle, careful, cocooning me as I shook and clung to the heat. I rose high enough to see over the fence of my house, just like all those other times. I finally remembered seeing her face. The image was clear now, unblurred, impossible to look away from. She was pale and gaunt, her lips stretched too wide across her skull, but her eyes, they were dark, but they were warm. "Did Mummy like seeing the stars?" I asked her. she hummed. My hands shook. I didn't turn the lawnmower off. I walked toward the house on numb legs, the sound of the engine fading into something distant, barely there. The front door was open as it always was. I climbed the staircase slowly. A low groan echoed from above, stretching and deepening as I went. The upper floor was completely open plan, wide and sloping in an expansive attic, and laid out across it was a very tall woman. Her skin was a shade close to gray. Her face was the weathered features of someone much older than me. Her limbs were long and spindly. She lay on her side, on a soft floor mat that covered nearly every inch of the space, her body folded carefully, purposefully, as if she had made herself smaller for me. Her eyes found mine, and the moment I stepped inside, I dropped to my knees and sobbed before I could stop myself. Terror and grief, everything I had buried for so long, rushed through me all at once, crushing and merciless. Fingers reached out, impossibly large, wrapping around me and drawing me gently toward her. I was pulled into warmth, deep and steady, and my shivering slowly began to ease. "You killed her," I sobbed. "You killed her, didn't you?" She hummed softly. "Why? Why did you do that?" I said, the words breaking apart as they left me. She brushed my hair back. My cries thinned into small, broken whimpers. "Why didn't she take care of me?" I whispered. "Why did she let me starve? Why did she hurt me? I was just a little kid." Her warmth held. Her breathing stayed slow and even. I fell asleep. When I woke up, I was in a bed. Across from me, seated in an armchair, was a little old lady. Her eyes were distant, as if part of her had wandered somewhere far away and hadn't yet found its way back. Still, they stayed on me, steady and patient. We were still upstairs. The massive mat lay stretched across the floor, unchanged. The bed had been tucked into a small corner of the room, like it had been put there just for me. "Who are you?" I asked. "What was that thing?" She didn't answer. Instead, her gaze drifted to something beside me. I followed it and saw a folded note resting on the mattress. I picked it up with shaking hands. I cursed with sighs and hunger, but I protect. "Sweet little boy, cold and hungry, I carry you to the stars, where she not reach. Lost myself when I took her, but she not hurt you anymore. Forgive me, please." When I drove home, I finally asked my uncle to tell me the truth. I asked knowing something horrible happened to my mother, but there were details surrounding the event that deep down, I think I never wanted to learn. But I felt stronger now. I was ready. He showed me the pictures first. It was me as a little boy. My hair was long and scraggly. I wore dirty clothes that were torn at the seams. My body was mapped with bruises, cuts, and burn marks. There wasn't much to know in the end, except the fact that my mother was a monster, and when she was found in the woods one day half-eaten, a case that would quickly be declared as an animal attack, people called it karma after they learned what she did to me. I continued to visit Ramona. I brushed her hair and cared for her when she was a little old granny. I laid down and listened to her hums when she was something else. I wrote all of this down because, unlike my mother, Ramona deserves to be remembered. I could never tell anyone about her. They would have hurt her or killed her, but I needed somebody to know. Ramona may have been a beast, but it wasn't her fault. Even when she lost control, it all came down to an instinct to protect. When she was dying, I fell asleep holding her large hand, and when I woke up, there was nothing. She was gone. Even though she doesn't live there anymore, even though the house is no longer occupied, I still go back to mow her lawn. And sometimes, when the lawn is done, I linger until the night swallows the sky. When I focus on the constellations, it almost feels like I'm rising, slowly, above the roof of the house. Wow, that turned out to be a really good story. It was very emotional and I really enjoyed it. Anyways, let's get on to the next one. You have one new friend request. I don't know when Facebook introduced the feature friend suggestions it used to be called, but now it's people you may know. A bunch of Facebook profiles suggested to you to add as friends, usually people you have mutual friends with you, or someone you searched for in the past. What creeps me out is how accurate it is. It's clearly taking data from somewhere, but it suggested people to me that I've only ever interacted with in real life. The woman that cuts my hair, or the guy who does my taxes at HR. Sometimes though, it really is a random person that Facebook thinks I know for some reason. That's what happened on Thursday evening. A new friend suggested A.R. Winters, no mutual friends, no apparent connection to me, but this one caught my eye for a few reasons. First, the photo was of poor quality. It looked like a photo from the 90s, something that had been developed on real film and then scanned or photographed. Second, it had been taken from far away. The man, or possibly woman, was wearing dark clothing, standing against a tree so far I couldn't make out their face. It didn't occur to me until just then, but generally, profile pictures aren't taken from that far away, unless they're traveling and showing off some landmark. But this person was just leaning against a dead tree. Out of curiosity, I clicked their profile. All of their info was hidden though. No cover picture, no other profile pictures, no about me info. The next time I loaded Facebook, he wasn't a suggested friends anymore. It was just the usual, never-ending wheel of 30-something women that had smattering of mutual friends with me. So I forgot about it for a few days, until they popped up again. People you may know. A.R. Winters. The same photo of them leaning against the dead tree, or was it? As I stared at the photo, I realized they were standing straight up, no longer leaning. I could have sworn. I shook my head. They were so far away, how could I tell whether they were leaning on the tree or just standing under it? Later that night, I checked Facebook again. People you may know. A.R. Winters. One mutual friend. I froze. A mutual friend? The mutual friend was some girl I went to high school with. I didn't know her well. We'd been close in 8th grade, but then she started hanging out with the more popular girls and we lost touch. Still, Facebook friends though? Because I never went through my list of 2,000 plus people and pruned some off. It didn't say he had a mutual friend with her before, so they just became Facebook friends, like today. This evening, maybe there's someone from our high school, maybe they just joined Facebook for the first time now, or maybe they lost password to their old account and are creating a new one. A few more days passed and I didn't see A.R. Winters show up in my feed, but then, on Saturday night, they were there. People you may know. A.R. Winters. 3 mutual friends. Not 1, 3. And the photo was definitely different. It was still the dead tree, the overcast sky, everything looked exactly the same except the person. They weren't against the tree anymore. They'd taken a few steps closer to the photographer. They appeared to be a woman, tall and pale, dressed in a flowy black shirt and long black pants, wavy, long dark hair parted neatly on the left side. Because of the film quality, I still couldn't make out her face. Who is she? I glanced at our mutual friends. One was a guy I had chemistry lab with in college, and the other was our English teacher, Miss Flowers. She'd been the teacher/mentor of our literature club, and she'd been dead for 5 years. I sat there, staring at the screen, taking all of it in slowly. Her account can't even accept new friend requests, and why would this random person friend request her anyways? A horrible, creeping dread tugged at the back of my mind. I clicked on the 2 other mutual friends, Jessica Marie and Michael, scrolled down on their timeline and, oh fuck, they'd both passed away. They hadn't been in an official statement for either, but their timelines were scattered with messages like, I miss you, 2 years since you've been here. Quick Google searches showed that Jessica Marie died in 2020 from complications of COVID, and Michael died back in 2023 in a motorcycle accident. I clicked back to my feed, to the friend suggestions, to AR's profile. I froze. She was standing closer, much closer. Her face was pale, almost pure white, like all the blood had been sucked out of it. Her eyes were dark, pupil and iris indistinguishable, and they'd seemed so big for her eyes. She had no eyebrows, her long dark hair twisted around her, as if there had been a terrible wind. Blip. I jumped. There was a little red one over the bell icon. A.R. Winters sent you a friend request. My hands began to shake. I stared at the 2 buttons. Confirm, cancel. I clicked cancel, closed out of the window, slammed the laptop shut. I sat there in the dark, panting, sweat covered my arms. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Calm down. It's obviously just some stupid prank. The photo's probably not even real, it's AI. I pushed out of breath and got up, put on my hoodie, left the apartment, and went for a walk. I shoved my hands in my pockets and walked along the walking trail at the local park. My breath came out in clouds of mist. I shivered. It was almost dusk, and the street lamps glowed across the road, orange, amber. Then I stopped. I'd never noticed it before. At the edge of the park, there was a big oak tree, barren of leaves now, but it looked just like the tree in Winter's photo. A million trees looked like that. Stop it. As I stood there staring, something peeked out from behind it. A pale white face, dark flowy clothing, barely visible in the dying light, but I knew it was her. I knew. I ran back home, locked my apartment door, and opened the laptop. Went to Facebook. Winter sent you a friend request. The profile photo, her face filled the entire photo, right up against the screen like she was staring right into me. And maybe it's just the stress, but I feel sick. Really sick. I've thrown up twice in the past hour. My stomach hurts so much, more than I ever remember it hurting before, and I can't help but think, am I next? Attention, unidentified passenger on board. I'd taken the train from Delaware to DC many times before. 7:53 p.m. out of Wilmington, arriving at 9:36. The tickets were cheap, and the train was mostly empty around that time. It was perfect. Tonight was no different. I sat in the window seat as usual, reading, as the train rocked gently back and forth. About 20 minutes into the ride, however, the intercom came on overhead. Attention, unidentified passenger on board. I looked up. Huh? Unidentified passenger? I glanced around the car. There was only the middle-aged woman I saw when I got on, several rows back. She was looking up confused. What the hell? The voice overhead was different too. It wasn't the usual garbled man's voice. It was a woman's, monotone and robotic. Do they mean like some kind of serial killer just got on or something? My stomach dropped. Wouldn't they say something more extreme though, like hide? We're making an emergency stop? This sounded almost like they were announcing someone hadn't paid for their ticket. I glanced to the front of the car, where the LED marquee was. Instead of listing the next station stop, it said, unidentified passenger, unidentified passenger, unidentified passenger. The letters scrolled past over and over, jittering orange pixels. Maybe they mean someone, a Russian spy or something, or maybe it's just some sort of glitch. I stared at the orange letters, unidentified passenger. I texted my boyfriend. The train saying there's an unidentified passenger on board? Really weird. It's gotta be fake, right? Or should I get off? He replied instantly. That's really weird. Maybe get off. I can take you to the next train, up to you. Where are you? I pulled up maps and checked our location. We were just a few minutes from Aberdeen. After hesitating for a second, I grabbed my bag. It probably is just some glitch or something, but I'm not gonna get stuck sitting I'm not gonna be some sitting duck. I turned to the aisle. A woman was standing right in front of me, the middle-aged woman from the back of the car. I jumped, banging my head over the overhead luggage rack. Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you, but do you know what's going on? She asked. I shook my head. This has to be some kind of joke, right? What do they mean, unidentified passenger? I don't know, I'm getting off just in case. I slipped past her in the aisle and started for the vestibule between the cars. Good idea, she said. She hurried back to her seat and started grabbing her things. I pressed the button for the door and stepped into the vestibule. The metal floor shook underneath me. The landscape outside the train was pure black, except for a single, small light twinkling in the distance. The door behind me opened, and the woman stepped in, clutching her bag close to her chest like a shield. I'm supposed to be at my daughter's wedding tomorrow morning, she muttered, messing with her ashy blonde hair. We just got back on good terms. If I'm even a minute late? I glanced at the window into the next car. It was empty, except for a single man near the front. I could just see the top of his head poking over the seat. He wasn't packing his stuff or even moving. Maybe we're overreacting, I thought for a second. No. This is how people get hurt, not changing their plans when the alarm bells start going. As soon as something is off, you get out, period. My mom had taught me that a long time ago. The train wobbled and shook. Lights grew in the distance, twinkling through the darkness. We were approaching. I stepped closer to the door, staring out the little square window. The lights grew larger. The concrete platform rolled into sight. The squat brick building, the dark windows, silver sign, Aberdeen Station. We blew right past it. I stared out the window. We just passed the station. No, what? Really? I nodded. Before I could say anything else, the intercom clicked to life. Attention passengers, please remain in your original train car for the duration of the ride. Thank you. The woman's voice again. Monotonous, slow. What the hell? The woman whispered. I glanced through the window into the car. The man was still sitting there, completely still. No, wait, not still. As the train took a curve, his head bobbed and lolled on his shoulders, simply as if he were... I ran back to the door of our train car, slammed the button. The door shuddered open and we slipped inside. That guy, there's something seriously... I could barely choke out the words. I know. Do you think he was... She couldn't bring herself to say it. It kind of looked like that. I glanced back at the door in the vestibule. It was still empty, but the marquee above the door now read, "Stay in your car, stay in your car, stay in your car." What do we do? I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. The woman and I began talking at once. On a train, someone's dead, it won't stop, just past Aberdeen. The operator said she'd get someone out to us, but deep down, I knew, what could they possibly do? If whoever was driving the train wouldn't stop, how could the police intervene? Set up a blockade? Possibly kill us in a crash? I stared out the window. Golden lights flew by, clusters of suburbs disappearing into the back darkness. I swallowed. You can't survive jumping out of a moving train, can you? I don't think so at this speed, she replied. Silence pressed in on us. We should hide in the bathroom, she said. It has a lock, it'll keep us safe. It says stay in the car, I said, pointing to the marquee. And you trust whoever it is putting that up? The bathroom doors are flimsy anyways, I said. If someone wanted to get us, they will. I closed my eyes, running my hands down my face. Could we just be freaking out over nothing? Maybe that guy, maybe he was just sleeping. Maybe they passed the stop for some reason. Maybe it really is just some glitch. The lights overhead flickered, and then went out. What the fuck? I whimpered. The train car was only lit by an orange glow of the marquee at the front of the car. It was still flashing the same message. Stay in your seats. Stay in your seats. Stay in your seats. This is insane, the woman whispered. I texted my boyfriend. The lights just went out, called 911. I don't know how they're gonna get us off the train. I hit send and closed my eyes. Wait, the lights being out? Maybe that helps us, the woman said. We can hide better. What are the chances he'll find us in the entire train? She crouched down. I don't think we can fit under the seats. These are the benches at the back. I bet we can fit there. I slowly felt my way through the darkness of the car, pressing my hands in the cloth seats on either side. We reached the last aisle, where the seat configuration had been altered to have benches facing each other, with a space in the middle. I squeezed down into the space between the seats, then shoveled under the first bench. The woman did the same, squeezing under the second. I felt too hot. The rug scratched my arms, the metal of the seat pressed against my head. I twisted my legs and pushed myself back, so that my head wasn't poking out into the aisle. We were decently well hidden, but if the guy or whoever it was found us, there was no way we could escape. We were trapped. We lay there, underneath the seats, for what felt like an eternity. The car rocked and swayed underneath us. My hair fell into my face. My legs ached. I knew Harry was probably texting me back, but I silenced my phone and it was deep in my pocket. I couldn't contort it to get it out. Now that I'd want to, what if they came by while I was looking at it and they found us because of the light? I was jolted back to reality by the shuddering sound of the door opening. No. I strained to listen. Soft, thumping footsteps sounded on the far end of the car, slow and methodical, quiet, like they were stalking their prey. The footsteps grew louder. I held my breath. Thump. A black leather men's shoe stepped into view. No, It glistened in the orange It glistened in the orange light, almost as if it were wet. My lungs burned. Please don't look. Please, please go. Keep walking. Go, go, go. They hesitated, shoes frozen on the carpet inches from my face. Then they finally took another step, and another. The door behind us shuddered open, and then closed. I let out my breath in short, silent little bursts, then sucked in another breath as slowly as possible. They passed us. We're okay. We're fine. I turned my head to look at the woman. Tears were rolling down her face as she stared back at me. "It's okay, he didn't see us," I whispered. Her mouth hung open, her lips trembled. "It's okay," I whispered again, but she didn't even blink. That's when I realized she wasn't staring at me. She was staring past me. I turned around. My blood ran cold. There was something at the door, pressing its face against the window, fogging up the glass. No, the person that just passed us wasn't it. That was just another passenger, trying to stay quiet, trying to hide. Maybe even the guy we thought was dead. It was that thing in the window. Eyes pitch black, skin ghastly white, barely lit in the flickering orange of the marquee, which now read, "Don't run, don't run, don't run." That was the unidentified passenger. The woman crawled out from under the seat. "No," I whispered, but she was already slamming her hand on the door open button. It slowly shuddered open, and she began to slip through it. The door opened on the other end, rapid footsteps, out of sync, frantic running. I saw a flash of bare feet and bare hands thumping against the carpet. In seconds, it had run past me into the next car before the door even had a chance to close. I heard a muffled scream and then silence. No, 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 no. I bit my lip, trying to stop from crying, but I knew she was dead. There was no way she could have gotten away. I closed my eyes tight, trying to push it all down, trying to stay quiet. It went past. You just have to make it until... The door opened. White, bare hands on the carpet, slick with something dark, followed by bare feet. Oh God, she's on all fours. She jerkily moved forward in a spider crawl until she was at my seat. She knows I'm here. No, no, no. I held my breath at its pale ankles, buckled under the hem of its white skirt. As it began to crouch, long dark hair came into view, skimming down to the floor. More and more hair. As it tilted its head down to look at me, it stopped just short of showing its face. I could see its hairline, its forehead. As it hung its head upside down, inches from my face, it stopped there, frozen, waiting. I could see its entire body shift as it breathed. I could hear the high-pitched rasp of its breath. A single drop of blood dripped into its pale hand, but it didn't show its face. My lungs felt like they were about to burst, but I forced myself not to breathe, not to move. I stared at the hair and the blood on its hands and the dirty white dress skimming its ankles. With a creaking sound, it got up. The door slid open and it disappeared. I took in desperate grasp of air. My lungs burned. Hot tears rolled down my face. I couldn't feel my legs or my feet. "You can't leave. Don't run, don't run, don't run." That's what the marquee had said. I would stay here forever in the darkness, even if every nerve of my body felt like it was on fire. I don't know how long I was there, crouched under the seat, trying to breathe as quietly as possible, pins and needles crawling up my legs, my head pounding, my arms numb. But then the train slowed, the lights flickered back on, and the intercom crackled to life. A man's voice as usual. "Now approaching Union Station." I didn't crawl out from under the seat until the train jerked to a stop. My entire body stiff, blazing with pain. I pulled myself out from under the seat, hobbled off the train and onto the platform. I felt like I couldn't even walk. The bright lights dazed me. Footsteps clicked, voices murmured, suitcases rolled across the concrete. A speaker somewhere overhead announced a leaving train. When I turned back though, I realized no one else had exited my particular train. Just me. And I didn't notice the hair until I made it to the station. A long black hair entwined around my wrist. And my skin underneath it, blistered and red. Everywhere the hair had touched.